skip over the favorite blockbuster for right now. We're going to go into Star Wars, since you mentioned that a little bit earlier. So they're doing uh, decanonizing. Well, it is rumored, but it might actually be a thing that they're trying to do. Is they're going to decanonize episodes 7, 8, and 9. I have my thoughts on it, but I want to know what your thoughts are, because you are a far bigger Star Wars fan than I am. Even though I'm a big Star Wars fan, but you are a
Right.
far bigger one than I am. So, because you grew
Well,
up
because
with
that
it.
ties into the blockbuster thing. Because I saw Star Wars, the original, just Star Wars. It wasn't A New Hope until Empire came out at the theater when I was a kid when it came out. Because I was
Mhm.
like 10, 9 or 10 in that range. I was in that kind of 9 to 10 age range. That blew us all away. I
Mhm.
mean, it just totally blew us all away. Um, so I don't even know how you would do the. Uh, I just don't. I don't get how you delegitimize three movies that you plunk so much money into and hype into. Um, I don't know. I mean, after all the brouhaha of getting rid of stuff that was already there and go, oh, we're
Mhm.
not doing that anymore. And then now it's like, oh, this thing we hyped up and we just built. Here's the thing: they just built an entire theme park. How do you,
Yeah, that's
you know what I
true.
mean?
That's true. Yeah.
And apparently the theme parks. I mean, that's the whole issue with what's going on now with the virus and whatever. But the theme park even before that wasn't doing very well because it was based off of more of the newer stuff that really nobody cared that much about.
Hmm.
I mean, certainly not the older fans like myself, who grew up literally with the toys. I mean, I had a ton of the toys. I
Hmm.
had most of them, if not all. I mean, I didn't have some of the bigger pieces like the Death Star and the Adet Walker or whatever,
Hmm.
but I did have like the Millennium Falcon, and I had the X-wing and all the other miniatures and everything, all the figures. Um, but that would be more for something like myself as an adult fan to go, oh man, that'd be awesome to go to, um, the Creature Cantina and listen to the band and the whole thing.
Hmm.
Um,
Like actually have a band there, in costume and
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
guys in costumes are playing the dun, dun, dun,
Mhm.
dun, 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 dun,
Devil
and you
hanging
play
out in the
all the
corner.
yeah. I mean, see, in my opinion, I mean, I know Westworld is a movie, and now a show, but
Mhm.
it would to me would be like an immersive weekend type experience, like you would get dressed up, but for some reason Disney won't let people do that. Excuse me. So yeah, Disney won't let people dress up to come in, which doesn't make any sense. It's like, why are you, like I think in Las Vegas they're talking about making a Star Trek, immersion hotel kind of a thing
Okay.
where you would actually get dressed up and do stuff like that. I'm like, why would you
Nice.
not let people do that? That makes
Yeah.
no sense. I mean, why wouldn't you let people come or be in costume and go, hey, you can experience this as a member or character, as a part of the whole thing. That would be really, in my opinion, that'd be really cool.
Hmm.
Because at Disney you can do things like that to some extent. You can actually, like, I remember when I was down there, um, there was, I think it was one of the Universal, not Universal, but the Disney film park immersion, whatever thing, where you actually could be in a little film they were putting together as a
Hmm.
mini thing, and you could be like a character in that, and they would record it, and you get a copy of it or something if you kind of plunk down some change, as it usually works at Disney, right? And I was like, well, they already do that, so why wouldn't they do that here? It's like, hey, for this, whatever, you can do this. Now, of course, it'd be an exclusive park, not just a park you can kind of walk into.
Hmm.
So you would actually be a character, sort of. That would be almost fun, kind of like those what they call like little LARP things, where you just dress up as an adventurer, and of course you have an adventure you can
Hmm.
do, and the people play the bad guys and the monsters and whatnot.
Hmm.
And so you can be immersed in that, but it doesn't have to be that necessarily. You could just be, say, hey, I want to go here and maybe just play a background character, right? Or just to be there, like you can stay
Hmm.
at the hotel and the whole thing. I think that would be amazing. I think people would love it.
Hmm.
And then of course you could also, you know, be go on these rides that would be kind of tied into the movies, like, oh, now you're taking a trip to this moon, or you're, whatever, for the ride. That would be cool. But for some reason, I don't know why. So I don't know how you would make a whole series disappear when they literally just invested billions of dollars in it and a theme park. and
Hmm.
on two coasts, mind you. So
Ooh,
what
yeah.
the Florida one and the California one,
Hmm.
and of course perhaps overseas. I'm not sure, but I mean, you built scale models that people scale, not scale models, but people versions of the Millennium Falcon you can go into and things like
Hmm.
that. It's just like wow. Because when I went to um, the Disney parks and I went on the Star Tours, there was a full size walker there. I mean, you couldn't get in it, but it was
Jeez.
there. There were people dressed up in the stormtrooper costumes and the whatever's. So that's great. But you were still just your schlubby tourist guy wearing your Star Wars t-shirt or something. Um, but again, I don't know how you do that. I don't understand why you would want to do that because other than say, some of the offshoots like Solo losing money and this last one not doing as
Right.
well as
Right.
they wanted. I don't know if it lost money, but I don't know if it really made money. But over time it might. But
Overseas
I mean, it
box
was all a
office
hot
probably.
mess. We
Yeah.
reviewed that,
Yeah.
even though they took it down our original. Anyway,
Hmm.
they
Yeah.
took down our video for that. They did that to a few people,
Yep.
but I don't even know how you do that. I don't know.
Um. Well, it's not the first time something like this has been done, because they kind of did that with the X-Men movies, even though like the X movies tended to get did get worse over time. But it's like when they did Days of Futures Past, they kind of reset the timeline in a sense. So basically, when they did Days of Futures Past, X-Men 1, X-Men Origins Wolverine, X-Men 2, X-Men, none of those happened anymore. So they're no longer like it's like they happened. Yes, they these were movies that came out, but when they did Days of Futures Past, everything was reset. So those movies technically aren't canon to the series anymore. And now like these newer movies that are coming out, they are the canon of the series. So it's not the first time someone has done it. It's just as bad as these movies were, as much as they have ruined things in the original trilogy, I'm kind of okay with it if they leave it at okay, episode 6 is the end of the Skywalker saga. If you want to tell a new story after the Skywalker saga, fine. Go ahead, yeah. More power to you. Go ahead, do it. But don't ruin the Skywalker saga anymore. If you're decanonizing these movies and they're not messing up episode 4, 5, and 6 anymore, then I'm okay with that as long as you leave episode 6 is the end of the Skywalker saga. Leave it at that. Don't touch it anymore. And you, like I said, want to do your own story, all new characters. They have nothing to do with the Skywalkers or anything, or Solos, or they have nothing to do with them. Fine.
Right.
Do your
Uh,
thing, you know.
But why didn't they do that in the first place? That would have made so much sense.
Yep.
Because I'm thinking like we talked about the toys thing before we started the recording.
Hmm.
I mean, you know, the toys were a huge hit in the 70s, of course, in the 80s, and sort of rehashed in the 90s later,
Hmm.
although some of it didn't really work. But um, I mean, the Kenner and the Star Wars really changed toys and action figures and play sets and vehicle style stuff. And of course, GI Joe kind of took it and ran with it too. But yeah, I mean, something like that was groundbreaking because kids could, and that was kind of new too because we talked about this before. At our panel for Thunder Out the Barbarian, you
Hmm.
could make toys for based off of TV shows because of the law that was then at the time,
Hmm.
kind of a consumer law protect kids. But you could off of movies, and there
Hmm.
wasn't really any movie thing out that was that like that. I mean, there was some figures out. There were certainly
Hmm.
large size GI Joes, but there was not based off of a movie or anything.
Right.
There's a Lone Ranger, things like that. But again, those were old kind of series that were kind of defunct, but they were still fairly popular.
Hmm.
Um, but then when Star Wars hit, it just like changed everything. Because I remember as a kid, I had like there were Fisher Price adventure people,
Hmm.
which were cool, which were actually really cool. And they actually like the boats floated and things like that. So that was kind of fun. But those were always like more for like little kids, in my
Hmm.
opinion, as an older kid, kind of that 8, 9, 10-year-old range. So I had like Micronauts, which were interesting because they were cool because they were unusual because again it was a comic book out at the time,
Hmm.
Marvel stuff. The Micronauts was just kind of interesting because they were spacey, so it was different, and so
Hmm.
that kind of led right into Star Wars because
Hmm.
again Star Wars was completely different. So
Yeah.
then unlike the Micronauts, which had like silver heads, and they were sort of robots, and they could, some of them could, the vehicle stuff, you can take them apart and create different things, which was fun. It wasn't real. Where Star Wars was like, real people. It's like you
Hmm.
could see yourself as, you know, Luke Skywalker or Han Solo or whoever.
Right.
And it's like, because they were human. They weren't like the aliens, because you were like, oh, that's kind of an alien. I don't know what to do with that. You
Hmm.
know, no one imagined himself as a Jawa, I think. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or
Right.
Jabba does it. No one ever mentions of that. But so there was that. And so that was a game changer, because you had some play sets, but also you could just have the figures and vehicles, and you could, like, in your backyard, or at the beach or something, you can create a thing. And so that was fun and amazing. But then as this new series came out, of course, toys, I guess because of modern era with electronics and video games, the toys kind of don't have the same thing as much. And now, like I said, with the toys, they're more geared towards adults, collectibles and whatnot. So
Yeah. You're not going to get most adults aren't going to buy your stuff because you're creating bad characters,
right.
just awful characters that no one's going to want to buy. So they're just going to sit on the shelf and they're going to be on discount and they'll be like, well, I don't know what to
and
do with
and,
these
and
or
that is the
whatever.
truth, man. Because if you watch any of those toy, folks on YouTube, or just kind of do some searching, man,
Hmm.
you'll see people post pictures of the Rose Tico action figures for like 50 cents, and there's
Yep.
like stacks and pegs of them. And you'll
Mhm.
see, like, Jin Urso. And again, we liked the
Rogue One.
Rogue One, which
Yeah.
was actually really good.
Hmm.
Star Wars Esh, that was a separate kind of thing,
Hmm.
which was great, in that regard. So you could do that very easily. And I don't think, I mean, of all those kind of newer movies, that was certainly the best one, in
Yeah.
my opinion, in our opinion, probably.
Yeah.
Um, because it was fresh and new and interesting, even though it was still based off of, and they had to kind of, do it in that kind of framework. But that just made sense, because you're telling a in between story,
Right. Right.
um, as opposed to a, completely different character where you could kind of do your own thing,
Hmm.
and still kind of tie it into, and still have that. And that's the other thing about the park is like, and a lot of people said they didn't understand, why wouldn't you base it off of the old original stuff, because this is more based off of the newer movies and stuff.
Hmm.
And I'm like, because that's not what people really remember. I mean, remember, if you're an adult and have kids, you talked about it and showed your kids the original movies. They grew up again watching, even on home video or whatever, not at the theater, but
Right.
you know, they grew up on the adventures of Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, and Han Solo, and Lando Calrissian, and Chewbacca, and all these other characters. They didn't. I mean, they saw them in movies, and they're like, oh, they're kind of neat. But it was just trying to do too much. There were too many characters. I don't know. It wasn't enough character development, because you had too, like I said, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. You had too much stuff going on. You couldn't really develop or go anywhere.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, the
and
story
then
did.
they
I mean, even the
kind of
story though,
kind
it
of
just didn't make any
handpicked and
sense. Yeah.
heavy-handed some stuff. What's that?
Yeah, I was like, even the story didn't make any sense. It was like you go
Right.
from 7 to 8 to 9. It's like there's all this discontinuity and it's just like disjointedness. It's just like,
Mhm.
what is even the purpose of any of this that's happening right now? It's just like
Yeah, I don't know if it's a good decision for Disney, or if it's just another bad decision for Disney, because I mean, you already got the bad decision of, let's make a movie based off the original series, but don't really focus on the original series that much, other than throw some characters in from the original series,
hmm.
but then don't focus too much on them, because they gotta have new characters,
Hmm.
and then kill them off real quick.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but if that's the case, then just don't have them there, or have them there as legend or something. Maybe
exactly.
have one, maybe have Luke, or maybe have one character in there somewhere,
Yeah.
maybe, uh, and then just have, like, these people growing up in that kind of shadow of these things that they're looking up to, and go that way, that it develops them to say, yeah, my life is tough, but I can overcome it. Like Luke Skywalker, when he blew up the Death Star, or
Hmm.
the legend of this or whatever, he was just a farm boy like me.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that kind of germinates something naturally inside the character,
Hmm.
to where they can kind of go, you know what, I'm going to strike out on my own and do these things, kind of like, the discussion we had before about Ray's character development, of just going like, I'm just going to wait around for my parents to show up before I leave. Oh, dude,
Mhm.
you want to leave the planet? Let's go. And it's like, wait, what? You're counting down the days till your parents come back. And then this guy shows up and you're like, okay, we'll go. It's like, what? It's like, but she's a strong woman. I'm like, not really. She just left the first guy. He said, let's go.
Mhm.
And she goes, okay. And then they left. It's
Mhm.
like, uh, sure. It's like, what? This startled stranger guy goes, we gotta leave. Okay,
Mhm.
let's do it.
Yeah, and they
So I don't know.
I
But then it didn't tie that in with they already saw the movies weren't doing that great. They were doing okay. They were making sort of money-ish, I guess.
yeah, they were making money. They were making money. I
But
mean, Last Jedi actually made a lot of money, but as far as like
yeah, yeah,
fan responses to these movies, they've gone down with each one. You know,
right. And I think
despite what
the
Rotten
first
Tomatoes is trying to tell us, but yeah, they've gone
right.
down with each one.
Well, that's the thing. I think with the first movie, for example, with the Force Awakens, which didn't really awaken much, but you still had that kind of weird thing of like, I don't know what's going on here. It's like,
Hmm.
but I think it was enough to get people go like, okay, so it's an interesting start. It wasn't great, wasn't terrible. Let's see what happens. So I think
Right.
it's kind of like with the original Star Wars. I think people went to see the second film to go like, what's going on next? And then of course when the third film came out, of course, being having a cliffhanger from the second film, you're like, well, I gotta find out how it happens. So that's
Hmm.
kind of that thing. And so but at the same time, it's like you go from those movies to creating a whole theme park or several theme parks based off of that kind of universe, then you're like, why would you make it go away? I mean, I guess you could easily switch it, but you just built the doggone thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That's.
mean, I don't know. I
I.
just I don't understand how you would even do that. I mean, I don't
I.
know. I
I
mean, the X-Men I think is a different thing because it wasn't really based off of anything kind of already established that had the impact that Star Wars did.
mhm.
So you have the pun intended juggernaut of Star Wars
Mm.
compared to see the X-Men, which were, decent movies overall, but it wasn't a phenomenon like the Star Wars. Because remember, it kind of introduced the trilogy kind of setup of
Mhm.
movies because the movies hadn't really done that at that point. And it also created, like I said, the toy, you know, explosion essentially. Um, and so yeah, again, I don't know how
Mhm.
you do that.
Yeah, that's that part's going to be weird. I hadn't really thought about that until like you talked about it. That part's going to be really weird. Um, and the only thing that I do know is that uh, everyone's favorite director, Ryan Johnson, is doing the is doing another trilogy. So I'm like, okay, that's still happening. I was like, all
A
right,
Star Wars trilogy?
he's still doing it. He's still doing it. They they said he was doing it. Then they said he wasn't, and they were just like, and then they're just like, no, we never said he wasn't. He's still doing yeah. But you know what? Here's what I hope, because it's one director, one writer. Even if it may not be good, at least it may be consistent and coherent. I might be able to at least follow it and see what it's going through,
Dude,
whatever.
dude, dude.
But
His movie wasn't consistent and coherent in the movie he did.
I know,
And
I
I
know.
keep pointing that out to
That's
people, and they
fair.
keep
That's
going like, "What are
fair.
you talking about?" I'm like, this, and this, and this." And I point out every little part of the things that didn't make sense in
Mhm.
the movie itself when it said, "Well, we can't contact anybody. We're too far out." Then they, like, 5 minutes later,
Literally
contact.
contact somebody.
I'm like, "You just said you could contact somebody else, so now you contact somebody." "Oh, wait, and it just happens to be a person that can't help you. How about relay the message?" "Oh, wait, she can't help you directly, but she knows somebody, of course." And then I'm like, none of
Yeah.
that makes sense. And then you kept doing these things, just like, I don't know, why do the ships fall backwards in space? See, I mean, in its own movie, it didn't make sense. It's like
It,
you got all the bombers killed, bombers that were flying at a snail's pace. What kind of crap ships do you people have? And no offense, if you're not going to use bombers to attack another ship, why do you have bombers? It's like none of it makes sense. It's like
Well,
And of
it,
course, later on in the movie, of course, you learn like, well, gee, if you hadn't blown up the dreadnought, you ought to be dead now.
mm,
But they don't rectify that and go, gee, Poe, you were right. We probably should have blown. I'm glad you blew that up because we all be dead now. And I mean,
no,
see, none of that
he's a
makes
piece of
sense within
garbage
itself.
because yeah. And
Don't get
at
me
the
started on
end,
the Last Jedi.
yeah, no,
I'm
no,
sorry.
no, I get it, I get it, I get it. And especially and at the end where it's just like they did there was this whole thing about tracking through hyperspace. They can track through hyperspace now. So at the very end, the Millennium Falcon, hyperspace is away. So it's like just chase them. Just go after
Go up,
them.
go find them.
And it's just like, yeah, okay. So she left in the Millennium Falcon. Okay, go after her. You can't
Right.
do that. They're just like, now wait like a good 3 years before I do it again. But yeah, no, I was
Again,
I was more so
I,
thinking like at least there's somebody like, all right, they have a roadmap as opposed to there was no roadmap with these three movies, and that's like they are completely disjointed from one another. I would probably say Rise of Skywalker is more a sequel to Force Awakens than the Last Jedi. It's like they were trying to
mhm,
erase stuff that happened. The Last Jedi was trying to erase stuff that happened in the Force Awakens. So it was like you got too many people, too many cooks in the kitchen. One cook in the kitchen might help. So even though it's him, it might help. So
but who's going to go see it?
what's
I mean,
that?
honestly,
What's that?
I mean, who's going to go see it?
Yeah, that's a good point too. That's a good point
Because
too.
people saw the last. Because like, if you watch, like Robot Head or a few other people who review movies, it's like you know what he did,
Hmm.
and not I'm not even let's not even let's take out the whole issue of him kind of destroying the franchise or whatever, I guess, or whatever. I'm not, let's not even say he did that,
Hmm.
but he wrote such a horrible, incoherent middle saga
Hmm.
that just again didn't make sense within itself,
Hmm.
even in a technical aspect of, well, they're fighting in the throne room, but yet why is Kylo Ren fighting when he's in charge now after he killed Snoke? I'm like,
Exactly.
why are the guards fighting against him? He's in charge. I'm like, it can't be the first time they've been around. It's like, yeah, remember when yeah, remember heard about, whatever guy that Darth Vader choked out, and
Uh
now
huh.
this other guy's in charge. And I go, okay, well, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
It's like
Exactly.
that's the norm for them. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Snoke would have choked some people out. It's like, you don't like it, boom, snap his
Yeah.
neck, next dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They would have done that, and they would have said like, oh, okay, and this is just the new dude in charge,
Hmm.
whatever. You know, oh, I'm taking an order from this general now. Yeah, I guess no got tired of the other guy. Sure. So imagine that they're doing that, and then
Hmm.
you see the whole horrible choreography there, and I'm just like, and then of course the disappearing knife,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh Lord. So it's just the whole thing.
If he's not writing it, it might. That was the other thing that I did forget about. I was like, yeah, he did. He also wrote the Last Jedi. So I was like, oh
Right.
crap. Yeah. So it wasn't just that he directed. It was like he directed and wrote. If he's directing and writing these movies, I'm just like, because visual director, like I think he does okay, except for that fight scene, obviously. But like visual director is like, okay, like there was a lot of stuff in the Last Jedi that was visually stunning. Did it make sense? No,
Right.
but it was like, okay, it was still visually stunning. I'm like, okay, maybe just let him be the let him handle the visuals. Maybe have the idea. Let someone else write it. Let someone else write it. Have a lore specialist around and let someone else write it. Maybe, maybe I'm not. I don't. How do I say this? I'm for some reason or another, I'm still hopeful. And I don't know why, like, the news of them actually erasing these three or potentially just saying, like, these movies are decanonized, we're going to kind of press the restart button. I don't know why. I'm just like, I was kind of hoping you would do. I think that's part of what it is, too. It was like, I was kind of hoping you would do that, so, like, and now making a new trilogy not related to the Skywalker saga. And I'm just kind of like, okay, let's a refresh. I'm willing to grant you a refresh. Now, if you come out with that first movie that's awful, then I'm like, okay, you're done now. So, but I'm like, I'm
You're
willing
just a
to
glutton
grant a
for
refresh.
punishment, my friend. You really are. Because that's the thing. I'm like, okay, so, but if see again, that opens a whole nother can of worms. It's like,
Mhm.
so you're going to say, "Oh, hey, Ryan Johnson, we want you to write and direct these 3 film trilogies."
Uh-huh.
"Yeah, you know the one you did first before? Yeah, we're gonna throw that in the garbage, man." "No, no, we totally appreciate you doing it." "No, no, we really did." "No, no, 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 don't worry about. No, no, it's all good, it's all good. That's why we're giving you these 3 to do. You see, we want you to do this." And he's like, "What? Oh, no, no, those others were fine, but, there was just just some issues, whatever." "No, no, do whatever you wanna do." "Yeah, no, no, that's fine." It's like, no.
That's a good
I
point.
it's
I didn't think
I mean,
about that. That's a good point.
it's like, how do you it's like, let's say, you're, um, I don't know, let's say you're driving somewhere across the country or
Mhm,
whatever, and you're sharing driving responsibilities, and you just badmouth the guy's driving
mhm.
the whole time you're driving, and then you go, "It's your turn." It's like, "Oh, it's your turn. Can you I mean, what?" You know what I mean? You see what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
"Man,
yeah,
you
I
bite the
gotcha.
clutch, and
I
dude, you're
gotcha.
all over the place. You go off the road. You're not paying attention. Oh
Mhm.
my god, I don't understand you, man. Come on, don't you know how to shift the gears?" Like, it's like, "Oh, your turn."
Yeah, I get it now. I get it. Yeah, that I didn't even think about, like, just the fact that, just like, oh, I want you to do these 3 movies. We're gonna tell we're totally throwing away the other one.
Right.
And,
Or you're like, let's say, we've both been in the military, right? So like,
mhm,
you like say there's a mechanic or something, you badmouth like mechanic skill up and down. You're like, "Oh my
mhm,
God, he couldn't fix a sandwich without wrecking it or something." And you're like, "What?"
mhm.
And it's like, "Oh, okay, your shift." And then you leave. You're like, I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't fly on the plane, man.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I'd check the brake lines before you leave just in case. Yeah,
Just in
yeah. I
case.
don't.
Yeah, yeah. So now he
And
has
he's already
more.
gotten. I mean, Ryan Johnson's already gotten flamed at several things on Twitter and all 9 yards.
Hmm?
I can't imagine he wants to do that again. I don't know, man. I don't know. So again, I just can't wrap my brain around this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it's
it's
just a bunch
weird.
of talk to keep the Star Wars relevant. I think,
Maybe
honestly, I think it's just a PR stunt.
yeah
That would make the most
likely.
sense because it's
Hmm.
like, I mean, logistically, you created, like I said, 3 movies. Well, more than 3 movies, but 3 main, trilogy movies. You've created toys, even though it didn't sell. You've created a whole theme parks around it. You've created other products based off of that sort of ish. So it's like, I don't know. I mean, I just think it's just a PR stunt ploy, just to kind of get people interested in talking about, Star Wars. Just keep it relevant because remember, after the '80s and the movies, after Return of the Jedi, there was nothing. They threw out some toys for a while and it did pretty good, but then it just kind of disappeared. And so they created another toy line and they re-released the movies to kind of drum up interest in the '90s again. So they try to do that to kind of keep it relevant. And so it's kind of a par for the course
Gotcha.
thing. I don't know. I don't even understand it.
See what the masses is gonna do with this and everything. Like I said, just drum up some interest again, because it's
Right.
be a while for the next. It'll be a while before the next Star Wars movie
Right.
ever
Whack the
comes
hornet's
out.
nest a few times. Anybody else
Yeah,
here?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That might be true. That very well might be true. And more I think about it
Yeah.
now, it's like that probably makes more sense than what they're actually trying to do. So, oh
Yeah, and
yeah,
and that's the thing is like you say that, like release it or sneak it out there, like don't tell anybody,
uh
and then
huh,
it develops this huge buzz
mm-hmm,
that kind of keeps itself afloat.
yeah,
And then people, of course, and certainly fan folks are like us, movie people are going to talk about it, and
mm-hmm,
tour people are going to talk about it. So you kind of it's kind of free publicity, really,
yeah,
which is kind of brilliant in a way. It's like, oh, how can we do this? Oh, let's do this. Okay.
mm-hmm.
And so you got that going on. So yeah, again, I don't buy it. I think it's just a sneaky a ploy
We'll
by the
believe it when we see it.
benevolent Disney overlords.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching until the end, fellow Nerd Posse. If you stuck around this long, it means that we own your soul, and the only way to get it back is to click that subscribe button, leave a like or dislike, and comment down below. If you want to watch the full video, check us out on McBlamEntertainment.com, or for the audio version, just simply look us up on your favorite podcasting app. Follow us on social media, the links are in the description down below, and if you feel ever so kind, you can support us on Patreon or Subscribestar for as little as $1 a month and gain access to our our Discord server where we talk about all sorts of nerdy stuff. Thanks again for watching, and depending on what time of day you're watching, have a good morning, have a good day, and have a good night, and we will see you in the next video.